Absolutely.
Hello everyone, welcome to the latest Lunchtime Bites webinar from the ICBE Advanced Productivity and Business Excellence SkillNets. Today our presenter is Dave Clarke from Clarke Analytics. Dave is a data scientist working in the IoT, manufacturing and supply chain analytics space, where he develops company strategies for big data analytics solutions and services. Prior to setting up Clarke Analytics, Dave previously worked with EMC, where he consulted one-to-one with senior business executives across Europe, the Middle East and Africa, and set up multidisciplinary teams in the data, warehouse and business intelligence arena. Dave has over 25 years experience in data science roles, program management, software architecture and management consulting across multiple domains. Dave holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Applied Mathematics and Computing from the University of Limerick and a Master of Science degree in Technology Management from University College Cork. Dave is PMI, PMP, and PMI ACP accredited, and has also received an accreditation of Certified Data Scientists from the Analytics Institute of Ireland. Dave currently holds the chair of the Munster branch of the Analytics Institute of Ireland. Today's topic area is building organisational data literacy, how to become a data-driven organisation. Over the course of 30 minutes, Dave will cover the success factors of an analytics project, how to leverage different data architectures and understand key skills to be developed or acquired to start building data programs. So no pressure, Dave, a lot to be covered. The ground rules for today: Dave will present for about 20 minutes, finishing up with a 10-minute Q&A. Everybody is muted, but we really do encourage you to submit questions or comments via the chat function, which we'll call out at the end. If you hover over your screen, you should see that function appear in the bottom of the top. If you encounter problems with broadband, please bear with us just in case we need to pause the camera. This session is being recorded, and without further delay, I'll pass you over to Dave Clarke.
Thank you very much, Owen, and welcome everybody. And thank you for taking the time out of your lunch break to watch this. And for those watching on the recording, thank you again for tuning in. So this session here, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, give some time for questions, is around sort of building organizational data literacy. And this is this is an ICBE webinar, and people here would know the ICBE. They were hearing a lot from their members that there is a need in their industry and in their companies to really build the data literacy maturity of people within their organizations. Last March, I think I started working with, in Clarke Analytics, we started working with the ICBE, and they have two particular skill nets, the Business Excellence skill net and the Advanced Productivity skill net, on a program of data literacy training. A lot of what I brought to this is, obviously I'm a practitioner. In Clarke Analytics, we're going about 4 years at this stage, I think next month. And over those 4 years, every year I would do significant work with between 3 to 6 companies. So a lot of what I put into these data literacy training courses is sort of the lessons learned a little bit of what tends to work better in terms of data analytics projects. And that's hopefully what I can bring to bear in both the training courses and hopefully in this webinar as well. So when I started thinking about, building organizational data literacy, what are the key sort of fundamental understandings that organizations need to develop internally so that they can build their overall data literacy maturity? And to me, it sort of came down to 3 fundamental key understandings that need to be developed. Obviously, the first was sort of understanding the business context. So a business works within various vertical markets. Within a business, people work within that business in various different functions. And they make business decisions every day. And in terms of data literacy, they need to understand the business decisions that they make and how those business decisions can be made more data-driven. And that's a sort of key first understanding, probably one of the most important understandings. The next is, you understand what your business context is and what business questions you're trying to answer. You need to understand, do you have the data available to answer that? And so the second key understanding was that understanding of the data systems architecture, that context. Now that's a bit of a word full there, data systems architecture. I guess when you think of data systems, it's the systems that hold data. But increasingly now in the big data realm, and data is held in lots of different places within organizations and even outside organizations, that the architectural context in which those data systems actually operate becomes very, very important. Now, the interesting thing about those two understandings within companies is that they're usually held in two different parts of the business. The business context and understanding the business context is held in the business side of the house, whereas the data systems architecture context is usually held more in the IT or the data parts of the organizations. And those two organizations usually are working with different pressures, working at different speeds, and a lot of the understanding is how to get value from data, that understanding that data value context is an understanding how to bring these two organizations together with their different speeds and different pressures to actually work together effectively. And that's sort of the understanding of the data value context. The other challenge you have here is that all of these and the understanding of how this all works is all very interrelated. So that's a challenge as well. It certainly was a challenge when I started to look at building a data literacy course. So one of the things that I started to contemplate is, to put together what I termed a data literacy development framework. And this is sort of inspired by Henry Mintzberg. I know people might know Henry Mintzberg, an organizational theorist. He classically had his change cube, where he said that, organizations, if you want to achieve transformational change, you sort of had to address every part of your change cube. So here's a change cube that I've sort of inspired by that approach. I've put this cube together, which sort of talks to the various parts of an organization that need to change or be looked at in order to achieve transformational change. So one way of looking at this is sort of to take a top-down, bottom-up approach. And if you take that approach top-down, it's the business initiatives that need to happen to drive transformational change. Either it's growth, you need to make growth decisions for the business, or it's productivity or gains, you decrease expenses, operational efficiency, or maybe it's a financial risk business initiative. But that's going to be from where your business questions are ultimately coming from, and those questions are going to be answered by data services. And those data services can be as simple as a physical report spewed out from a computer that answers a question that a business person can use, or it can be as sophisticated as a mobile app, point in time, place in time, augmented reality. You point it at a manufacturing floor and it automatically goes, this machine needs to be fixed, or this one's going to fail, or you've got too much product here, or in this place, or in that place. Now, getting to those data services, if you follow the blue, you need that collaboration. And so that's where your business and IT folks sort of work together. Collaboration is so fundamentally important with data projects and building overall data literacy. They collaborate on projects and people, and those people bring skills and teamings. They have a specific types of methodologies, and they sort of form the genesis of building your data service. And then you have your understanding of your data architectures, the actual data itself, the granularity of the data. You're going to use different methods to come up with your data services. And rounding out all of that is the data governance aspects, and that's becoming more and more important. 2-3 years ago, governance and compliance was all about GDPR, and now that's moving that out now to include things like trustworthy AI, the ethics in AI, as well as security, right? So that is a massive area. And, when people look at this framework, they're still wondering, where do we start? So, one of the things that we've included in our training courses is a data maturity sort of checklist level that you can sort of understand where you are in terms of your overall maturity. And there's 6 vertices in this where you can track, where you are now, where your target is. You can use this as a conversation to have with the hierarchy of your company, to sort of help them understand, where you are, where you need to get to in order to build your overall maturity. And an interesting point here is that, there's only 2 of the vertices here which are really around technical capability. The rest is around people and process. That's your analytical data architecture maturity and analytical methods maturity are more technical. The other are more people and process and how data is going to be used, which is an interesting aspect and also something to be remembered. So let's get back to the actual business questions. If, business questions, obviously it depends on the type of business you're in. And certainly in Clarke Analytics, we've worked in all of companies all across these different sectors. And the first, I suppose, lessons learned of whether or not, it's something I've learned in terms of, business questions which are likely to be slightly more successful in being answered more quickly are the ones that have pain, right, for organizations. Now pain, nobody likes to think about pain. So maybe pressure, let's say pressure points, okay? So we're doing some work at the moment with a pharmacy company, and pharmacy is very much interested in improvement of yield. But the thing about the company we're working for at the moment is that their yield guidelines or their assigned, I suppose, yield numbers and figures and control parameters that they issue to the FDA, everything is in control. So there's not necessarily a pressure point here, right? So, what we're doing is we're helping them improve yield, but, some of the people within, say, the manufacturing side of the house, it's not a pressure point for them. It's not a pain. They're within viable ranges, but they could increase it. Whereas we've worked with another manufacturing organization that had a large scrap problem. In fact, they were blowing their scrap budget by 300%. And that was a real pain point, and that was being felt at the top levels of the company. So, and I talk about pain, challenges, and pressure points because oftentimes it's only when there is pain and challenge and pressure points that you get that collaboration happening. If there is no pain and pressure point, people are oftentimes just by human nature, oh, I don't need to reach out to these people. I just do a project, an investigative project on my own. There's other pain points there, in healthcare, so we need to understand whether a disease is slowing in growth. So how many of us now know, some of the intricacies of the R0 number? So again, that's a pain point for our nation, and it's sort of driving pretty good modeling, I'd have to say. In the public sector, we need to predict state exam results. That was a pressure point, a pain point. How well that was done, that's another aspect of it. And it's another aspect, I think, of managing the expectations of what data-driven decisioning can get you and how far it can get you. And that's another thing to be thought of as well. The other point, I guess, is obviously those pain points are good to sort of know, good places to start looking for which are the business questions that will likely be managed. The other is, you need to find a sponsor. You need to find somebody who can champion you in terms of your project. And, the CEO is a good person. I have an old colleague of mine from EMC, Bill Schmarzo, he's the Dean of Big Data. And he talks about the 3 M's, make more money. So, your business question is ones that will make you more money. And a nuance to that I've actually had a case with one of our clients is more to find more money. Now, this particular client, a large organization where their stocking position was growing phenomenally, out of control, into the hundreds of millions. And they had a need to find more revenue or certainly more free cash flow. And so the CEO is a good place to start. The CFO is an extra good place to start for your sponsor. Because working with this client, we were able to identify the free cash flow priorities, and we were able to, by just looking at 9% of their stocking position, put a strategy in place where they could save in the tens of millions of euros over the next X number of years by changing their stocking strategy. So there's pain points. There is, the CEO is obviously a good place to start, but the CFO is the next best place to start because they know the pain of where is money locked in the organization. And these are all, these are all places where you will find a use case that will get good backing in the organization, because again, building that collaboration often takes that sort of pain point. So once you have, you understand the business context and you have your sponsor, the next is then understanding the data that you have access to. And in our training course, we talked to this idea, which was coined by a consulting group called the Greylock Partners, and they call these the new moats. So we've heard of data lakes, we've heard of data platforms. They term they use this term, the data moat. The moat is the new moats. Moats were defense mechanisms. So in this industry 4.0 new data economy, the new moats are your defenses against business model erosion, defenses against competitors coming up against you and taking your business and taking your customers and bettering you. So, and their idea of that was, and it's sort of down the left side of this slide, that you have systems of record, which are classic systems like your CRM, your headcount management, HR systems, your ERP, or your IT service management systems, your systems of record as to how your company works. Systems of engagements are your front end, your mobile apps, your web apps, your chats. And then the systems of intelligence, these are your moats, right? So these are the systems and the data you will use to build your defenses against data model erosion. Now, what I would add to those, and I've added in these, the classic systems of record here are more IT, generally IT systems. You need to add the OT systems, and a lot of manufacturing people signed up for this webinar. The OT systems, classic distributed control systems, your data historians, your lab information management systems, your manufacturing execution systems. Again, the biopharma clients listening in will understand these, as well as your IoT systems and your sensors out there. So all of these are source systems of record, and you need to, depending on the question, right? So depending on the question, you may not need to have access to all of these systems. You may simply be able to go to your systems of record, but sometimes you need to have access to all of these systems. And one approach, the classic approach, is to take data out of all these systems and put them into a data lake. Now, biopharma companies, data lake is second copy of data. You run into a lot of data integrity issues there. It's going to take longer to validate. So one of the things that we're doing with one customer that wants to implement continuous process verification capability in their biopharma operations, they need sort of end-to-end data visibility is one thing that they're looking for. And there are other options, architectural options that we could look at there, and we have been looking at with this customer. And one is around data virtualization. So it's a data virtualization pieces of software that sort of sit in memory, sit between your systems of record and your systems of intelligence, and get you that end-to-end view. And we've recently, they recently piloted that and had a very successful capability. So data virtualization is not a second copy of data, sort of data is sort of pre-cached, available to your systems of intelligence. So there's a lot of complexity here, much more that we can go through in this timeline. But in our data literacy course, we certainly walk through a lot of these different architectures, data systems architectures needed to support basically the systems of intelligence to give insight up into the systems of engagement. I'm going to talk to the value context, which is more about methodologies as much as anything else, and skill sets. We've only a couple of minutes left before questions, so I'll run through this relatively quickly. So a methodology that underlines everything we do in Clarke Analytics is CRISP DM, and the data mining people will know that. And we've built different services like innovation workshops and labs to actually address, to implement this methodology. I also have a paper there that I released on LinkedIn a couple of years back that's still very, very applicable, the 5 rights of business analytics. Starting with the right question, right process and right team. Getting teaming right is important, and the skill sets there. Tools are getting better, and the sort of point and click type tools that are available. And getting the right people in the innovation workshop is important as well. And it's important to have that control in the workshop, and that workshop is where you get people together, because one of the important tasks that you need to do in any data analytics project is basically to manage the expectations of your sponsor. Because sometimes, you know, getting to the right answer, there's two right answers in any data analytics project. One is you get the data that answers the question you want answered, and you're good to go. You actually have something that you can use now to drive the business forward. The other right answer is you don't get the answer you were looking for, or you don't get the data, or maybe the question wasn't right. And sometimes people think, and this is a problem, well, it's not a problem, let's say it can be a challenge sometimes, managing the expectation of people that think that the answer should have been got straight away. Because you need to get into that sort of, some people call it fail fast, fail often. I like to call it learn fast, learn often. You know, you find, ask a question, see if the data will answer it. If it does, great. If it doesn't, great, because you found out more about your data, you found out more about your business question, and you've improved your overall data literacy maturity. So you then build a programmatic approach around the use of data, and so that you start quickly asking questions, seeing if the data will answer it, asking questions, seeing if the data will answer it. Some will, some won't, move on, and some will to great benefit as well. You can also combine methodologies. So the Lean Sigma people among you will sort of understand, I know I'm talking about a couple more slides to go. The Lean Sigma will understand this idea of CRISP-DM, or the MAKE, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. There is some work we're doing with Crest Solutions where we can combine both of those methodologies, because one of the challenges people have with the MAKE is that the problem needs to have happened before you try and fix it with your Lean Six Sigma approach. But what if you were able to use the data mining to find the variables that actually have got the opportunity or the capability of causing the error in the first place? So if you combine both of those, then you can use the data mining approach to find the variable that is possibly going to cause issues, and then use CRISP-DM and the Six Sigma to actually implement a method of controlling that particular variable. So these are different skills. Again, in the training course, I detail out these skills a little bit more. Won't go through it too much here. So this is the structure of the course. It's split up into different modules. It's done over 3 weeks. We've got 6 different modules there to sort of cover your development framework. There's an introductory module as well. Second last slide. So in the first week, you've got online lectures, and they sort of happen late morning, early afternoon. So you can work with the course through, you know, while you're working. Then you get access to different data sets, and I think the business excellence gets slightly different data sets around HR and sales, and the activity to get more manufacturing and operations data sets. But you work together collaboratively in a team. There's online mentoring sessions, and then you present your findings at the end. So I know we went slightly over there. Sorry about that, Owen. But yeah, so just to leave here, the data literacy courses that we're running, there's one of them. There's a couple of different dates for the next ones. One for the support functions under the Business Excellence SkillNet, and obviously with SkillNet you get there's heavily subsidized by the SkillNet program, and there's advanced productivity then for the manufacturing and engineering, and that is more technically advanced.